What's up in War Eagle War Report family? You got Ike Jones back with another morning drop. Today it's Facts or Nah Friday, and we want to hear your questions, facts or nah style. So come on in here, drop those questions in the chat. But let's get to it. Y'all know how we do right here, War Report style. Let's drop it on them.
You are now listening to the War Report.
Morning drop Friday, February 16th. Ike Jones, B. Will in here on a Facts or Nah Friday, here to answer your questions, get into your Facts or Nah. B. Will, how we feeling this Friday morning?
Man, up late. Kids cutting up this morning. I wonder how much time you lose over the course of your life from getting kids together that ain't trying to cooperate, man. I don't know. I'm losing time. I love my kids to death, though.
I don't know nothing about it, man. I just let my son do whatever he wants to do in the mornings when he's here. I'm just like, just do it. Go crazy.
I can't get down like that, man. Gotta get them wrangled. They're too much trouble. But it's a good morning. Made it here. Just in nick of time. Getting to this Facts or Not Friday.
Yes, indeed. Of course, as always, Facts or Nah and every situation is brought to you guys by the Rogue Shop. Make sure y'all check out our folks at the Rogue Shop. Go ahead and share the content with somebody out there on social media so they can come in here and participate. Everybody is welcome to drop Facts or Nah questions in here on Facts or Nah Friday. As always, we are going to prioritize, of course, our Green Name Gang folks and our super chatters, but everybody welcome. Everybody's welcome on Facts or Nah Friday to drop your questions in here. We put the situation out there on social media. Didn't get a ton of responses, so I didn't make a graphic for it. But I do want to highlight a couple of them that I thought were okay. And I'll start it off with Stuart Donald, who said, Facts or Nah, there will be at least 3 flagrant fouls in Saturday's game.
Oh, no, it's not going to be that bad. It shouldn't be that bad, Stu. I don't think. Yeah. Kentucky can be fired up. They're going to be fighting for their lives regardless. This is not the first time they would have been challenged. And they're fighting for their lives. So I don't expect them to literally be fighting for their lives. I usually expect that type of behavior from people who are used to getting their way, but they end up not getting their way. But that's not Kentucky. They haven't been getting their way all season. So this is going to be a familiar feeling if they come in here and start getting run off the floor. So I'm going to say no.
I think it's going to be a rowdy environment. I don't know what the number of flagrant fouls. I'll be surprised if there are 0. Just because I think there's going to be a level of physicality that Auburn's going to try to come out with initially, and Kentucky's going to attempt to match that physicality. So I think there's going to at least be 1, but the question was at least 3. I'm going to go nah on that. I don't think we get to 3 flagrants in this game. I just don't think that Kentucky is that kind of team, where you push them. That's like, nah, you ain't going to be pushing me around. Push you back. It's going to be more like,
hey.
Yeah, like what's going on here?
Yeah.
What's all this ruckus going on over here?
No, wait a minute.
Referee, don't you see that? This young man that's not in the rule book.
Come on, ref, he's pushing me. That's Kentucky this year. They ain't got it in them this year.
Oh man, and Kentucky's talented, man. I'm not making fun. They're just not a very physical team, man. And maybe they're gonna try to be fake tough in this game and be like, we can show you guys we'll be physical. But it's like they like the little dog barking on the other side of the fence. You open the fence up, they be like, it's like, yeah, nah, bro, that's not what you want for real.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I'm going to go nah on that one, man. I don't think they got that kind of – I'll be surprised if they come out with that level of aggression and physicality in this game. So we shall see. The other one that was on here that was semi-serious, because y'all know y'all be clowning on the Facts or Not questions.
Yeah.
Jacob Smith tweeting at Jacob_C_Smith says, Facts or Not, Auburn finishes out the regular season 5-1 and at least has a share of the regular season title.
Well, the thing about the 5-1, because we are a game behind Bama, because Bama has only lost 2, right? And we've lost 3.
We've lost 3 and Bama's lost 2. That's correct.
Okay, so we know we got the tiebreaker if they can get to the same number of losses. Because
correct. Bama has to at least lose 1 more, and then we couldn't lose anymore. So if we're going to get 5-1 for the rest of the season, it means Bama's got to at least lose 2 more games.
And they actually, it kind of shakes out okay for them. They have to go to Florida, which, I
Mhm.
mean, it seems like that's a daunting task. But as Ike was noticing in some of his digging into the research, Florida may have just played an excellent game coming off of a break more than them being just unstoppable at home, similar to what we actually are. We're unstoppable at home. I have a tough time seeing a second loss for Bama because they have their toughest competition at home for the rest of their schedule. We have one more very steep test on the road, and that seems to be the biggest difference right now. It's not that they are a better team. Of course, they're not. We beat them by 20. But when you play at home, man, you have a much better chance of winning those games. So, unfortunately, I don't think 5-1 does it. I think we would have to win out. We would have to win out. I think Bama catches another loss, but we would have to win out to win the regular season.
I think 5-1 might get us there. I do think that Bama can slip up twice, just because I don't like them and I'm not wishing anything good on them. So I'm gonna go facts on this one in my fandom. Looked at Bama's schedule. I think that there are some opportunities for them to lay an egg in a couple of spots. But listen, man, we put ourselves in this position by not handling business versus them in Mississippi State in two very winnable games.
Right.
The Florida game, that was just going to be what it was. We should really only have one loss as Auburn on this SEC schedule. But you're here now, so yeah, you've put yourself in a position where you really can't afford to drop anymore. But I think that one loss is definitely possible,
Yeah.
potentially even two. But I really hope we don't get to a second loss. But
Right,
one loss
right.
definitely possible
Sure.
to finish off this season. And then just hope Bama goes cold from three, because if they're not hitting threes, they're not really winning basketball games because they can't do nothing else.
Yeah.
So we shall see what happens down the road here against them. All right. Let's get into the ones that we have here in the live chat. So you guys make sure you're dropping them in here. Again, use hashtag #FactsOrNot when you put your questions in so we can make sure that we can see them and weed through. It's not a lot of questions today, so this might be a quick Facts or Not Friday. We ain't gonna just belabor it because we ain't getting questions. But I'll start it off with Dana Jones, who says, "Facts or Not, the light comes on for Aiden and he will be back on track against Kentucky."
I think Aiton is a long-term project as far as the light. The light was basketball is basketball. You're good at this one thing, so you're going to come in here and you're going to shoot, especially early in the season. But I think the longer the season goes on, seeing a player's minutes diminish over the course of the season means that as he's starting to learn more of what's expected, as Bruce Pearl is giving him more of the point guard responsibilities, he was struggling to do all that processing and thinking and be the carefree shooter that he was. I think he has had to think more and be accountable for more. And I think what they've got him doing now is taking a step back. You're going to have to be accountable as a point guard, but for much fewer minutes on the second unit, where you will have more of a green light on the second unit and not necessarily shoot us out of a game at that point. He is in for lack of a better term, he's in training camp with what he's being asked to do, how long he's being asked to do it. And I don't think this is a light that will come on completely. Small chance it comes on during the very a whole lot of practice between the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament, where it's just games, practice. That's a great opportunity for him to start to have it come on, but probably not until next year, to be honest with you. I don't think it's a this season thing. If it is, it's going to be very late. I think it's probably next season where Aiden fully gets a hold of the role and plays his full potential. So the answer for this will be nah.
Yeah, I'm going to go nah as a light comes on against Kentucky. But I do think that we see him start to turn the corner, because I think that Auburn's going to start using him differently, right? I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be coming off screens and off the ball a little bit more, and that's going to give him more of an opportunity to do what he does well and get into the game a little bit more. But versus Kentucky, I think that that's going to be the first signs that you have of that, where they're going to be using him in that different way. So more so how Denver Jones was used earlier in the season, I see them kind of trading responsibilities a little bit more, where he's going to be the off-ball guy coming off of screens and being able to open it up with his ability to shoot, and that's going to be a more comfortable spot for him. Even though in his career, in high school, I should say, he was very ball dominant, pick and roll. But I think that if you use Aiden as a shooter, he can give you some valuable minutes because Aiden has played well defensively. So he's not a liability defensively. He's a size liability against some bigger guards, but he's not a defensive liability as far as him being out of position all the time or really just getting pushed around a bunch.
Right.
So maybe getting Aiden off the ball a little bit more will allow him to get into the groove shooting a little bit more. So again, I'll go Nah versus Kentucky, but I will say that I think that he's going to be better as the season progresses.
Who's going to run point with Aiden off ball?
Denver.
Okay. He can do it. I don't know how sure his handle is because I think Aiden has the better handle, but I guess we'll have to see how that works out.
Yeah, I think that you will see because what happens with Aiden in the game versus Trey in the game is that you tend to be more of the ISO / pick and roll offense, which Denver Jones I think can run just fine because he did it at FIU. And with Trey in the game, you see more motion, more stuff where you're trying to use your point guard as a facilitator as opposed to a scorer, which I think fits just fine with both of their abilities. So I think that's what probably will start to happen a little bit more, especially if you're playing against taller guards. They're going to be using Denver a little bit more in those scenarios.
Gotcha.
P Pass jumps in. Facts or not? After losing by 20, after losing to Auburn by 20, Kentucky coach Cal doesn't make it to the NCAA tournament. Kentucky fans are not happy.
Not making the tourney. I think they got to be what.
Well, they're saying
usually,
Coach Cal won't make it to the tourney.
I know.
Kentucky will make it to the tourney, but they're saying they'll fire Coach Cal before the tournament, or that's what he's asking.
Oh, I got it. I thought he meant like he wouldn't get Kentucky into the tournament. But
no, he's saying that Kentucky will fire him before the end of the season if Auburn drops a 20-piece on him.
Nah, they won't fire him before the end of the season. I think they'll part ways at the end. Kentucky's been losing heartbreakers all year. They've been using heartbreakers all year. I don't think a game at Auburn where everybody's getting thumped is going to make that much of a difference. It would be right in the mix of everybody else in the SEC, which is bad to be in the mix of everybody else in the SEC for Kentucky, but that's not what's going to be what gets him fired. I think he makes it to the end of the season. They probably part ways.
Yeah, so I'm going to go nah on this one as well. No matter how poorly this game turns out, I don't think that the moaning from the Kentucky fan base will make them fire him before the end of this year just because it's too late in the season. Like if this was early in the year, maybe, but their record isn't that bad. I mean, I know Kentucky fans are upset, but they've only lost 7 games, something like that so far this year. Look at their it ain't as terrible as people try to make it out to be. They acting like Kentucky only won 4 games or something.
They're a regular team. For Kentucky, I'm sure that's bad. But
yeah, let's see. Kentucky this year is that's women's basketball. Which shout out to the women's basketball team for beating the brakes off Kentucky yesterday. Wasn't very pretty at all. All right, Kentucky men are 17-7, so they've lost 7 games this season. That's not a bad season for like regular programs. That is terrible by Kentucky standards. 4 conference losses. If Auburn gets the win tomorrow, that'll be their 5th. Kentucky fans will absolutely be upset, and I do think that might lead to end of the season situation. I don't know if they're ready to pull because unless they've got some assistant that they're super confident in,
right?
I don't know that it's bad enough yet. But listen, a 20-point loss to Auburn will absolutely send Kentucky fans into a spiral on social media. They will be crying bloody murder and asking for resignations all across the board in Kentucky. In the end, Mark Stoops is going to be sitting in his office laughing.
Kentucky basketball, Alabama football. The most entitled fans in the world. I'm so happy when they're upset. It's very comforting. Feels good. I'm excited about that.
Let's see here. Chris S says, facts or not, Aiden has the KD roll off the bench on the 25 roster. What? Okay, Aiden next KD roll off the bench on the 25 roster. So he's going to be coming off of the bench next year. Similar to how KD is doing right now is what this question is saying. Facts or not?
I'm going to say no. I think Aiden's role and his skill set necessitates that he is a starting point guard. Now, he may not be, that's what he would be going to. I don't think he's going to be your, hey, it's time, go out here and get buckets no matter what, because that's what KD was, especially in the lineup last year where that started, where we struggled with shooting and scoring. So you needed somebody on the second unit who could do it. And I think it worked for KD, and he's been filling that role since then. But for Aiden, I think he's going to be a starter. He may not be a starter.
Well, he said it's 25. So next season, do you think? I mean, because Trey is still going to be here. So is Trey?
Trey's
I think
still
Trey comes back
Trey
as
still
the,
has to
the
be here.
starter. Yeah.
He has to be the starter next year. Aiden could come off the bench. So, Chris, let me say it. I do think Aiden could come off the bench. I don't think he's going to be asked to do what KD did off the bench, which is, hey, we need a spark, go. I think if he does come off the bench next year, because they were trying to give him the opportunity this year. Obviously, they wanted him to start, and they relegated him to the bench because he wasn't playing well. I guess it depends, because if he takes on more of the role that you're describing, like he's off ball, they're giving him some curls and some pin downs and stuff to get some open looks, then I don't know, keep him out there as a 2 next year. With I'm assuming that. Well, I don't know if Denver's gonna be back. I don't know.
I mean, Denver has another year of eligibility, so he could come back for another season.
Yeah, we're gonna be. Ooh, isn't Pettiford gonna be here next year too?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Aiden better start hooping, but he could be struggling trying to find a spot that start line. You might be right, hey Chris. You might be right, because if Denver's back and Pettiford's here and Trey's back, man, you better get that shot dropping, my boy. You're gonna be coming off the bench, heating it up. That's what you're gonna have to do. So, hey, you know what? I'm gonna say facts right now. Facts.
Yeah, I think this is a facts as well. I don't know how between now and the start of next season he usurps Trey Donaldson as a starting point guard. Mm-hmm. And if Denver Jones is back, then that's your starting 2 guard as well. So I don't see Aiden jumping back into the starting role unless somebody leaves, which I'm hoping none of the aforementioned leave. So, and listen, I don't think that that's a bad place for him to be with the way that Coach Pearl likes to distribute minutes. Mm-hmm. It's not really about who starts. It's about how quality you're playing in the minutes that you're going to get. And those would be 4 quality guards. Now, if in some bizarro land, KD Johnson comes back for a grad year, that's when you start to worry about your minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, as it sits right now, he still would have plenty of minutes to be able to come in and play in your rotation at point guard, which is why I think it makes a ton of sense. And I think Bruce Pearl and his staff are so good at doing this. It makes a ton of sense for them to move him off the ball now, because that might be what he ends up having to do more of next season if Tahad Pettiford's going to come in, because he's going to be a guy that's going to need to be on the ball because he's not as tall. Unless Tahad grows a couple of more inches, they're going to have to play him at the point guard. And so your point guard rotation will be Trey Donaldson and Tahad, and then your 2 guard rotation ends up being Aiden and Denver.
Yeah.
So having him get more comfortable being off the ball, I think that makes a ton of sense. And them getting him more comfortable now and letting him get into that role and acclimated makes a ton of sense as well. So, I'm going to go facts on this. He's going to have that instant offense type of off the bench type of role next season.
Yeah. And maybe some of that, maybe not having to bear the point guard responsibilities frees him up and that shot just starts falling.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's the case, right? Because he's such a good shooter, right? Like, it's not as if he's just like a regular, I can't, you know what I'm saying, like every now and then. Like, that's Denver Jones, right? Denver Jones is such a good shooter. It's like, how do we find opportunities for him to do what he does well? Mm-hmm. Though Denver Jones can be a spot-up guy, he shoots much better. Like, that step back off the dribble stuff that he does is really kind of where his bag is. Like, he can shoot the corner 3 type stuff, but that's not really how you maximize his game. And again, it's not necessarily how you maximize Aiden's game, but I think that Aiden coming off of curls and coming around like that changes how defenses have to play him. Yeah. And I think that changes the trajectory of where this offense can go if he starts to play that role.
Yeah, agreed.
Chris S. again, facts or not, women's basketball wins the SEC tourney.
Oh, there's of course South Carolina's the big one, and unfortunately for them, LSU's going to be playing better, I think, later once they get. Are they
And we
back
got
up
to
what
play
we have
LSU
now?
again in the regular season already.
Oh
So
yes, man. They get back then, unfortunately, because it's gonna be at their place, and of course we're a little shaky on the road, just like all teams are in college in general. But they're not gonna win the SEC tourney. They just I've watched very small amounts of women's basketball to the point in this season, but I've also talked to you about it. If we don't have more consistent scoring, it can't be honesty Scott Grayson all by herself, man. Like we might have Iverson, but man, SEC ball, they got two or three people that have more dominant inside presence in the women's game than we have. Not just with one scorer. I think you need more to win the SEC tourney, and I don't think we have it this year.
yeah, I'm going to go nah. I've remarked about the men's basketball team and kind of what it takes to win tournament stuff. And it fundamentally comes down to two things once you get to tournament time. It comes down to guard play and it comes down to depth because you're playing so many games in such a short amount of time, right? Like you're going to play two games in that weekend for whatever round it is. So for the round of 64, round of 32 in the NCAA tournament, you're playing two games that weekend. Usually, and then when you're talking about the SEC tournament, let's talk about the more compact tournament. You're playing, depending upon where you're seated, 2 to 3 games in like 3 or 4 days. So like teams get tired. Where women's basketball is going to come seated in the SEC tournament, they're going to have to win like 4 games. And in order to win probably that first or second game, if they win the first one and they get to that second game, which I do think that they can win a first round matchup, but it just kind of depends on who they're matched against. That means Honesty's going to have to play like 30-something minutes.
Yeah.
Of the 40 minutes. She's going to play 30-something minutes. So she's going to be exhausted that next day. And I don't know where they find a secondary score unless somebody upsets somebody and they can just clamp down defensively and win a tight game without Honesty having her best night. I don't know that my point here is I don't know that you can expect Honesty Scott Grayson to have 4 games of her having to play 30 plus minutes and they get to the championship and win it. Right. Especially considering you're going to be going against a team like South Carolina who has guards and depth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't see it for 4 games. Not right now. Somebody else has to manifest, and it's getting late in the season. You would think that person would start to show signs, and it hasn't emerged for the team. So I think that it's very unlikely, even though they have a really good defense. And defense is kind of when everybody else is tired. If you got a good defense, you can force people into bad shots, and you can make it close. I just don't know where the scoring is going to come from.
Right.
I just don't know where it's going to come from. So I'll go no on that one. Let's see here. Corey Weber, facts or nah? Denver runs more minutes at point against Kentucky than Aiden does. We kind of sort of got into this, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna say facts. I think you giving me that idea and that intel, I can see why they would do it. And Denver can handle the ball. He's not maybe a true point, but if you've got Aiden in movement, that can unlock a lot of stuff, including open shots for Denver as the person with the ball. So. Yeah, I'm gonna say facts here. See how it goes, man. I just want to unlock Aiden because there's more out of him that you can get that we're not getting. So if we can get any more out of this team than we're getting right now, that'll be phenomenal. So I'm gonna say facts.
Yeah, I think facts as well, just because I saw the pivot in direction in the last game, and I think that that's a trending direction. I'm hoping they find a better way to rotate and get 8 more minutes than they did in the last game, though. But they're still tinkering with that rotation a little bit. So absent of foul trouble, I think all things being equal and Denver's not in foul trouble, then yes, he's going to get more minutes at the point guard. But hopefully Aiden, they find a way to get him more minutes at an off guard position so that he can go and contribute. I think, because here's the thing, I think just the threat of Aiden being out there on the floor changes how you have to defend.
Yeah.
And I think you make it easier for teams to defend him when he's on the ball because it's like, all right, I know where he's going to be. He's right here. Like getting him in motion, letting him be able to do kind of some of the stuff that you see some of the better shooters do in the NBA, which is we're going to run him all over. Because I think Aiden's conditioned really well, right? And so make somebody chase him around, run him off screens, do what you need to do. to get some sort of crazy matchup against somebody who is a good offensive player like a Dillingham or, if you're talking about the Tennessee game, Dalton Connect, do something off the ball where they're going to switch and put Dalton Connect on him and then run him all over the court off screens, make him have to chase Aiden around off the ball. Dalton Connect's way taller than him. I don't think that's actually going to happen. But like for Kentucky, like a Dillingham, right, or Antonio Reeves, you get them matched up against Aiden off the ball and then make them chase him around for 20 minutes of the game and see how well they can do that with Aiden coming off of pin downs and all this kind of stuff. I think that that's a good way to be able to enhance your ability to tire out some of their offensive firepower. So I'm going to go facts on this because I think that that's a good way to approach it. Nathan Long says, facts or nah, Broome plays himself into a first round pick, and Jay Will plays himself into a second round pick.
I could actually see both of these facts. The question is still going to be about Broome's size. I think he's answered the question of outside shooting this year, free throw shooting this year. He's going to be up against some taller and more athletic centers in the game where he actually faced some taller guys. It wasn't a great game for him. Mm-hmm. That's what he's going to have to address because he's not athletic enough to just blow by guys who are going to be his height and taller in the NBA. His game would translate to like a 3-4 in the league, but is he fast enough for a 3-4? Because in the league, you're going to see somebody 6'8" that's as spry as like a Jabari Smith. He's playing a 4 in the league. Jabari Smith will block Broome's shot because he's long and he's athletic and he's got faster feet. So I still think Janai is kind of an in-between a few positions, and I wonder if anybody would spend a first on him. But I think he's shown, well, now I'm rethinking it because I've seen the NBA lean more towards measurables than productivity over and over again. When that game, who was that kid from Bama? He was a 5-star, but he did nothing. JD something. He was a guard. He just did nothing. He had like a mop top head.
Tomorrow for Bama, JD Davidson.
Yeah, he got drafted. And he was awful in college. He got drafted over Scottie Pippen Jr., who that year was like the only reason Vanderbilt was winning games. Neither one of them are on
anybody's team right now. I think both of them are in the G League.
Though Scottie Pippen Jr. got picked up, he's hurt, but he's kind of bouncing from team to team. He's not doing much.
Yeah, I thought he was on a G League contract, but yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just surprising to me because I saw Scottie Pippen Jr. actually have like basketball skills and IQ, and he didn't get drafted. But I saw J.D. Davison do squat, and he did get drafted. So I'm not going to sit here and act like Broome being productive is the only thing that's going to determine his draft ability. I think it's more than that. I don't think he's a first-round pick for that reason. The whole lottery is going to be full of guys who are athletically gifted. After that, I think you're going to get some of the value pieces. So I'm going to say both guys end up in the second round. I think that's probably the likelihood. Both guys end up in the second round. So for Broome playing himself into the first, I'm going to say nah.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with this. Nah, I don't think – I think that though Broome is having a great season, to your point, the way that NBA evaluates talent, I don't think Janai Broome projects as a first-round pick for anybody just because he doesn't I heard somebody talking about, what makes good professionals, and I want to be able to quote them, and I can't remember who said this. I want to say it was one of those former basketball players podcast. Maybe it was Paul George. But they said that to be good in the NBA, you have to do two things really well. Like you need to be elite at one thing and then be really good at a second thing. And then the elite players in the NBA have three really good things that they do, right? So, and then your journeymen, right? Like they just have that thing where like a Kyle Korver, where like, or somebody like, what's your boy's name? Pat
Crossover.
Bev. No, like Pat Bev, right? Who just defense and tough. Like he's elite at that one thing, which is why he's become a journeyman. But like to be a stalwart in the NBA, you need two things, which is why they have like the 3-and-D guys. Like I can shoot threes and I can go play defense. I do those things really well. The question you have to ask yourself about Janai Broome is, what are his two elite qualities, right? And the answer to that for Broome is really, I don't know the answer. Honestly, like what is he elite at? We're talking about next level. I think that Janai Broome is an NBA player for sure. First round pick, you have to think, what is he elite at? He's not an elite shooter. He's a good shooter. He's not an elite ball handler. He's not an elite defender. He's not an elite rim protector. He's just like good at a bunch of stuff, which is
Right.
why I think he will make the league and why I think he actually will play pretty decently in the NBA because he'll get more space to be able to you operate with way more space in the NBA, which I think benefits Janai Broom
Right.
at the next level. But like, where is he going to be able to dominate NBA competition? I don't know the answer to that question. And so that's why I think because I can't answer that question definitively in my mind, I think NBA scouts will have a tough time answering that question enough to value him as a first round pick. But I do think that he makes somebody's NBA team.
Yeah, agreed.
Jay Will, same thing, right? Like he's not really elite at anything. He's really good at a bunch of stuff, which is why I think he can make somebody's NBA squad. His athleticism alone makes him NBA caliber, and then he can step out and shoot the three.
Yeah.
But like, where does he check the elite box for you somewhere? I don't know the answer to that, especially considering you have games where he kind of disappears on you, right? So, but again, I think both of them are NBA caliber players. So we'll see what happens. But first round pick, I can't see it right now. He'd have to. I don't know. I don't know what he'd have to do. But yeah, it'd have to be a lot for him to play himself into the first round. Because you got to think about this last season when he was shopping in the NBA, he had to prove that he even deserved an invite to the NBA Combine.
Right.
Right? Like it wasn't even a guarantee that he was going to be looked at by an NBA scout. He was just getting G League looks. Right? And so this year, I think because he did so well in the Combine, because he's playing the way he is, now he's going to get NBA looks, but I don't think that he's played himself into first round NBA looks.
Right.
And I have to go, I might change my mind once I go and look and see who all enters the draft, right? Because the math on this changes a lot with NIL about guys staying around a little bit longer and as to whether or not they feel as if the NBA is the right place for them and what their prospects are. So I don't know, but for right now, I'm going to go no on this. Let's see what we got. Michael Taylor says, facts or nah, Holden is a third string QB after spring.
You know what? I'm going to hit you with this. I'm going to say nah because if Holden is definitively third string after spring, Holden won't be here in the spring after spring. He's going to leave. He's not going to stick around for a third string opportunity. He got passed over all last year after being praised for his arm and how well he can throw it, but he didn't get a shot at the job. And now he was going to get slotted into the second slot permanently no matter what because Hugh Freeze was going to just ride with Peyton Thorne. But after that showing in the bowl game, at least we've worked our way back into this is an open competition. It probably really will be one. And I think he'll have a shot at one or two. Now, if he doesn't get one or two, because, again, I'm thinking about this. Hugh Freeze last year said, well, we're going to go this many weeks, and then we'll try to narrow it down to 1-2 after a couple of scrimmages, whatever. Okay. If it's a couple of scrimmages, and he says, all right, well, you're three, Holden's not going to jet in the middle of camp. He's going to finish camp. And then after A-Day, when he plays, the third quarter or something, he's going to leave. So if he's first or second, he will be here. If he's third, he will be gone. So, nah, he will not be the third string QB after the spring because he wouldn't be here if he was.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think this is facts and nah because, you're saying nah because you think that if that's the case, he leaves. But I'm thinking that's going to be the case, so he's going to leave. So I'll say facts just because I think the more, the spring hasn't started yet, so of course a lot of this can change. I think the more that we look at this, if Hank Brown is as good as he looked in those couple of drives, he's going to play himself into the conversation for one of those first three quarterbacks. I think that Peyton Thorne's experience puts him in that conversation for one of those first three. And I think that Walker White's potential puts him in the conversation for one of those first three, which moves Holden down into really, and I should say those three things put all of those guys in conversation for one of the first two. And then Holden, I think, is starting out this conversation as, in my mind, this is how, let me kind of reformat my thoughts.
Okay.
I think right now, Hank Brown and Peyton Thorne are really who are vying for first-team quarterback.
Okay.
To start it off, I think in the coaches' minds, whether they want to admit it or not, They're starting off with the mindset of it's going to be Peyton Thorne or Hank Brown. I think Holden has now moved into the backup / number 3 spot to start off. If they were if they wanted to be honest and make a list, I think that's where it would go. It would go Peyton Thorne, Hank Brown, Holden Geriner as 1, 2, 3, and then Walker White has the potential to play himself into one of those spaces at 1, 2, or 3, depending upon really how poorly those first 2 guys shake out, or first 3 names shake out. And because I don't think he's starting really at a ground zero, everybody comes in number 1. I think he's starting out as a number 2 in people's minds. He might end up playing his way down to number 3.
I guess we'll see.
So-
Man, I hate it for him because all he really needed was an opportunity last season, and that last season was the lost season for Holden. Not because he's out of eligibility or anything like that, but because you had a guy in front of you who honestly was not the guy. So all last season, you could have known what you had in Holden Geriner if you just gave him the opportunity. And now you've got 2 guys who may be breathing down his neck, or they might be in front of him. Because, I mean, of course, Walker White looks like the heir apparent just based on how much energy they put into recruiting him. But Hank Brown showed something, man. He did something for himself. And to be fair, Holden had that opportunity before Hank Brown did in that game, and it didn't look as fluid when Holden was in there. So he's got the opportunity, though, to do something in spring camp and in fall camp if he were to stick around that long. But yeah, I for Holden's sake, he should have done more with the opportunity he had in that bowl game. It was meaningless, but we came off of that bowl game talking about Hank Brown's passes and what his energy and passes did for the offense, and not Holden. So, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah. Jared Albrick says, facts or nah? Football, Auburn is 4-0 when we square off against Oklahoma. First 4 games being Alabama A&M, Cal, New Mexico, and Arkansas. I appreciate the parenthetical there, so I don't have to go and look up the schedule, because y'all know I'd be like, well, let me go look up and see who we play, even though I actually remembered this, who our first 4 games were this time. But yes, what do you think? Can Auburn sweep the first 4 games of the season against A&M, Cal, New Mexico, and Arkansas?
Absolutely, they can. I definitely believe they should. All those games are at home, so I expect us to be 4-0. I expect us to be 4-0 going into that game against Oklahoma. Facts.
Yeah, this one should be facts, and if it's not, I don't know. I think people will start hitting that panic button super early in the season. You know, the Oklahoma game being at home gives them a better shot at being able to get that win as well. But I don't see any reason why. Okay, so Alabama A&M, like, come on, let's be for real. There's no reason why Auburn should lose that game. Cal, I have not paid much attention to what they've done this offseason. All I know is the guy who gave us problems at quarterback is no longer there. He's on our roster now.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
For Cal. So I don't know what they did to replace him. The guys who were giving us issues on their defense graduated, so I don't know what they did to replace them. And yeah, and they've got Jaden Ott, who's their all-world running back, who didn't do a bunch against this team last year. You know, it's really going to come down to how much better we got in the run game this season. But there's no reason why we should lose that Cal game at home. None. New Mexico, no reason why we should lose that game. Comes down to me for Arkansas, really, because yes, I am counting those 3 as wins. There's no reason we should lose it. Comes down to Arkansas. Arkansas has a lot of work they got to do.
A lot.
They're getting their quarterback situation figured out. And defensively, last year they didn't even show up with any effort against Auburn. I don't know if year 2 T Will, that defense is going to be looking more fierce. I have no idea really what they're doing. They lost some guys in the portal. I haven't been paying a ton of attention to what they've done in the portal to know if they've improved themselves from a skill standpoint. So I don't know enough about Arkansas. So here's my thing. Today, I'm not counting any SEC win as just, we're definitely going to win.
That's fair.
We should because it's Arkansas.
Yeah.
But Arkansas at home over the last couple of years, or a couple of times, Auburn ain't won that game. So Yeah, I'm gonna say we should facts, but I need to see more about who these teams are before I can answer that definitively. But for today, I will go with facts on that because I just don't. None of the names on the jerseys of any of these guys scare me as an Auburn fan. So I'm gonna go facts.
Okay.
All right, we are out of here. We appreciate you guys jumping in here, facts or not. As always, Morning Drop is brought to you by the good folks over at the Rogue Shop. Make sure you head to rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT. America's #1 online dispensary is Rogue Shop. Sleep, stress, pain, anxiety. Rogue Shop's got you covered. We'll be back at you guys with some Live Town content tomorrow. So make sure that you are locked in as we get into breaking down that Kentucky game. Like the video before you get out of here. Subscribe to the channel and make sure you share the content with somebody else. Until the next time. And as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Drive.